So let's go through what I eat in a kind of typical week. Starting on Sunday, I always go to a spin class first thing in the morning, and afterwards I usually eat one of these midday squares just for a little. They do have protein in them and they're a little bit of chocolate, but it just kind of helps me not feel faint after a class. And then because I usually run any errands I need to and it's really close to a grocery store, sometimes usually I grab a coffee as well on my way to the grocery store and enjoy it while I walk the aisles. While I was there, I actually was looking for something to eat for dinner, so I picked up this truff pasta sauce. This is the black truffle arrabbiata, and it definitely is a splurge for me. Like, this is not cheap at all, but I whipped it out for dinner that night because I realized I forgot to eat lunch. So I basically just had like a really simple pasta and meat sauce for dinner. And then usually in the mornings, at least during the week, I like to make coffee at home. And this is like a bit of a ritual for me. I know you guys have seen it a couple times before, I've shared it, but I love my French press coffee. It's something just kind of really relaxing to me first thing in the morning to make my coffee using, it takes time. I have to wait for the kettle to boil. I have to wait for it to steep in the coffee mug. It's just really great for me. And I also try to add collagen powder to it. So I really like the Vital Proteins one, and I try to use collagen just because I'm not really a breakfast person. I find that unless I'm working out, I end up feeling really nauseous if I eat something first thing in the morning. But I do try to make sure that I'm not just having like 0-calorie coffee first thing and not really eating until lunch. So I like to usually put some non-dairy creamer, some collagen powder, and then maybe a syrup in there as well. I think that one was caramel. And then I just kind of like blend it up and have a coffee for the day, which is usually a pretty good start. That's usually, honestly, even those coffee quotes that I'm posting, that's usually what I'm drinking. And it ensures that I start the day on a good note, even if I end up getting immersed in something or leaving the house and just grabbing something on the go as opposed to actually eating something that I cooked, which is basically what happened on Monday. I was out running errands and I stopped by a local bakery, and while I usually get like a sweet pastry, I opted for a sandwich. This is a smoked salmon sandwich with a hot apple cider, and I got 2 macarons. They actually ended up giving me a third for free. That was so good. And then later that day, I just didn't have time to cook, so I got the lamb burger from this restaurant nearby, which is so good. It's like a lamb patty with red peppers and greens and onions, and then I also got the fries as well, which is kind of funny because I usually don't actually eat the fries when I get them. And then on Tuesday, I had to head out to the drugstore to pick up some stuff, so I motivated myself out up and early because I told myself I would go stop at a coffee shop on my way. So I got a matcha latte, and I completely forgot to ask for vanilla syrup in it, so it was very like grassy tasting. And then when I got home later, I just had some of that leftover pasta from Sunday just to get it out of the fridge, but also because this was like an early lunch because later in the day I was going to the Royal Winter Fair. And every year the Royal Winter Fair does these like cooking demonstrations, and I've wanted to go to one for the longest time, and I finally got the opportunity to, which was really nice.
When I was growing up in the kitchen as an apprentice, I was working in New York City, and my chef, everybody's every cook.
The one that I went to was Carl Heimlich, who is one of the owners of Richmond Station in Toronto, which is one of my favorite restaurants. And he was basically making this really simple beef dish. So it used Canadian beef, we had thyme and rosemary and other herbs in there, and then these like little dumpling pasta things as well, and mushrooms and kale, and mixed it all together and kind of cooked it, and then got to eat our food at the end. And honestly, this was so good. And then after that, I also, when I was leaving the fair, I actually discovered that they had this booth that had a whole bunch of treats. So I picked up nougat, so many olives, like way too many olives, and some baklava. Wednesday was another really busy day for me. So first thing in the morning, I had like a little kimchi bowl or breakfast bowl. So I had an egg, potatoes, there's some breakfast sausage, cucumber, there's some vegetables, and then some kimchi there as well. And then I did not make coffee at home this morning. I actually grabbed coffee from Starbucks. This was one of their new Christmas drinks, and honestly, it was not that good. It was like a gingerbread oat chai, and it basically tasted like I was just drinking like 16 ounces of oat milk. It was not good. But I came home, and around 3 p.m. I realized that I was really hungry, and that was because I hadn't really eaten anything since breakfast. So I whipped together a really simple like veggie platter, I guess you could call it, or like a crudite tray. I don't know what the word for it is, but essentially I just used this pack of definitely not homemade, it's store-bought, but this pack of ranch dip with some cut cucumbers, some cherry tomatoes. I added some cheese on there as well, and then these crackers that I really like. They have like dried fruit and nuts and seeds and stuff in there, and they're like super dry, but they're really good. So I put that all together just to kind of make a little veggie tray for lunch. And then I was looking forward to this meal all week. So when I went to the grocery store on Sunday, they had salmon fillets on sale. So I picked up 2 of them, and I basically I knew I had these pasta pucks in the fridge, so I figured that I would just do a pasta with like salmon on it. And I was watching TV at the same time while I prepped this. I started watching this new British TV, like it's a comedy called Starstruck, about this girl who falls in love with a TV actor. So it was just really nice and meditative to me to season the salmon and then get the dill ready and just, get it all ready to go. I actually got pasta as well while I was out, fresh pasta I should say, from this nearby restaurant, and I try to pick it up as much as I can, just between Italy and then restaurants in the neighborhood as well that sell it, because fresh pasta tastes so good, and sometimes it's pretty much the same price as buying the dry pasta in the grocery store. So if I could get something that was made in the past like week, as opposed to something that was made in a factory a month or 2 ago, I definitely opt for that. And I just find it tastes better and cooks better, and it's just better. So while I waited for my pasta to cook, I then started getting my pan ready to cook my salmon. And I have a love-hate relationship with this brazier. It will not, I put stuff in it and it like seems as if nothing is melting or as if it's not getting hot, and then all of a sudden like it is sizzling. Like I dropped that dill in there because I was convinced it was not heating up, and all of a sudden it just started to sizzle, and I had to work quickly because I wanted to make sure that like the dill didn't start burning in the pan as well. But I put it in, I cooked my salmon, and then I took it out. Then I pulled this pasta sauce puck out of my freezer, and I really like these pucks. I get them from a butcher shop nearby, and they have about like 4 different flavors for them. This is the classic one, but essentially you're supposed to just take the puck and put it in a pan, let it melt from frozen, and it creates like a nice little sauce for you. And the package literally says like melt puck in pan and toss with pasta. I usually add water to it, some of the like the starchy pasta water, just to help it along a little bit because it never melts very quickly in my pan. So I usually add a little bit of water just to make sure that I'm not burning it in the pan or wrecking my pan. And then as soon as that's melted, I just toss the pasta in as well that I just cooked. And I had accidentally added a little bit too much water. So as you can see, I'm just kind of letting it, well, first I let it coat the pasta, and then I let it kind of cook off a little bit as well in hopes that it will thicken up a little bit. I think I added some butter in here as well, just to make sure that we could like really get it done, but it worked. And then once it had thickened up a little bit, I took it all off the heat, and then I sprinkled some lemon juice over top just to kind of finish off the dish a bit and add a little bit more flavor to it. And honestly, if anyone knows how to squeeze a lemon and not get all the seeds, well, how to get all the seeds out of the lemon so that they don't fall into your dish, please let me know, because if you have ever like accidentally bit into a lemon seed, you know how bad that tastes. So I'm always making sure that I get all of those little seeds that I missed out of the dish after squeezing fresh lemon in. And then I just stirred it up a little bit just to make sure that it was all incorporated and got to plating. So this was, again, a really simple meal. It's basically just pasta with some fish on top, but I had my nice silky pasta sauce that's so like buttery and good without being too like overwhelming. And then I just topped it with a piece of salmon and called it a day. And then finally, to round out the night, when I picked up the pasta, I also picked up some cannolis, and this was so fresh and so good. It's one of my favorite kind of like little dessert treats, and I made a little cup of tea to go with it, but it just kind of rounded out my night. Thursday was one of those days that just kind of like flew by. It started really early for me because I had an appointment first thing in the morning, but essentially I just woke up, had coffee first thing in the morning like usual, and I mean I made a mess on the counter because I was so in such a rush and completely missed the top of the French press at one point. And I just made my coffee like normal with a non-dairy creamer and a syrup and collagen powder, and it felt a little bit special because I was using one of my new mugs. So I got this mug at Anthropology, and it's part of like the city series that they have, and this is New York in winter, and it's not too Christmassy, which I really love, but it just shows people skating on like an ice rink or on a canal, I guess, and on the other side it has like people walking on the street as well, which I really loved. So I had my coffee first thing in the morning and answered some emails, and then I got ready to go out, and I had a facial at Formula Fig, and then afterwards I went to Mandy's like usual for lunch. I ended up getting a different bowl than what I normally get. So this one had brown rice in it, edamame, broccoli, cabbage, tofu, and sesame seeds. It was really good, and I was so full after eating it. And then I also stopped on my walk home. It was very cold outside and I just needed something to warm me up, so I stopped at Aicha Tea, and while I was waiting they looked at all the plants that they had, as well as the cute little candles like those macarons. And then I completely forgot to take a video of my tea, but I got a mango jasmine tea that was like no sweetener in it, which tasted so good. And then for dinner, I whipped up one of my favorite fall dish meals. This is actually a side dish that I first saw for Thanksgiving, but I eat it pretty much all winter, fall and winter. It essentially is just Brussels sprouts that are like cut in half with butternut squash, and bacon is the original recipe, but over the years I've tweaked it to include like any root vegetable really. Like I've used turnips, I've used parsnips, I've thrown in sweet potato, just kind of like whatever I have on hand that's seasonal. And instead of bacon, sometimes I switch in pancetta. And then you make this really simple dressing for it. That's basically just oil, salt, pepper, garlic powder. Sometimes I'll throw in like a little bit of like cayenne or paprika if I want a little bit of like spice in there as well. Onion powder. And it's really flavorful for something that's actually like so simple. And then I also usually use whatever like herbs I have on hand. Today I use thyme. Sometimes I use like dried rosemary. And basically you just put that on top of your like vegetables as well and mix it all together so that it all like, I guess it's kind of like coated or marinated a little bit, and you cook it. So I laid that all out on my sheet pan, and I opted to use pancetta this time instead of bacon. So when I was at the butcher shop picking up some stuff earlier in the week, I also picked up this like pancetta packet that they had, and I basically am just dropping that in kind of like on top of and kind of like nestling it in amongst all the veggies, just so that it could, all the flavors could kind of like meld together as it cooks. And because it's not a full meal, I also picked up this lemon pepper flattened chicken. It's already like marinated and everything. It takes very little work. You just put it on a pan and cook it. And after that, I boiled some rice while it was all cooking. And I had this really simple meal of rice, chicken, and veggies that was packed full of flavor. And for dessert, I had a cookie from Mandy's. It's oatmeal raisin that they gave me for free when I stopped by earlier in the day. And then I went to meet up with a friend, so I grabbed a tea on my way. On Friday, I started my day off yet again with a cup of coffee and yet another new mug. I have liked this bistro tile mug for the longest while, so I finally picked one up. And then I ate out yet again. I had my favorite avocado toast with egg and bacon. And then for dinner, I ended up having fish and chips. So I have been craving fish and chips for the longest while, and the place I usually go to closed unexpectedly during the summer, so I have been on the hunt for something since then. I tried the Sea Witch place, and it actually was like very good. And then on Saturday, the final day of the week, I started off with some oats that I made. I kind of like made them a little bit fancy because it was the weekend. So there is some apples in there that I just kind of like stewed a little bit with some cinnamon and maple syrup. There's some walnuts. I sweetened it a little bit with coconut sugar as well. And then for lunch, I stopped at Coopford and Kim because I was just like out running errands and shopping and everything, and I got hungry, so I got the Oaxaca bowl. It's basically like a burrito bowl but healthy. It's kale, cashew cream, there's corn, brown rice, and everything in there. And I usually add chickpeas just for a little bit more protein, but it's kind of one of my go-tos if there's a Coopford and Kim nearby and I am out running errands and get hungry. I try to cook at home as much as possible, but sometimes that just doesn't happen and I need to eat out or order in. So I try to opt for healthier options as much as possible. That's not to say I don't enjoy like a greasy pizza every once in a while, but essentially we're looking for balance. And if I'm going to order something, I want to order something that I would potentially regularly eat at home. It's just not worth it to be feeling sick at the end of the day. But after that, I went home and made a really easy soup with just some leftover chicken and some vegetables that I had around the house, and it kind of was like the perfect end to the week. So thank you so much for following along on what I eat in a week on day 2 of Vlogmas. Till next time, have a great day.